History nerds, what is the scariest event that ever happened? The Cuban Missile Crisis. We were this close.
Look up the Arkhipov. It was even closer than most people realize.
Basically a 2-week standoff between America and the Soviet Union that is the closest the world has ever come to full-scale nuclear war.
Second closest. I'd argue this Stanislav decision was closer.
I'd say the Mongol Empire with Khan showing up and surrounding your walled city. Things are about to go as poorly for you as they ever could.
Yeah, I'd be mortified. Getting raided like that.
Every guy is executed, except for one who is sent to the next city to tell them the consequences of disobeying the Mongols' orders. And that's after they've starved you all half to death and raped your wives.
Don't forget butchering prisoners to render down their fat to use in the next siege.
Or order them in front of your army to soak up arrows for the next siege.
The Black Death wiped out a big chunk of Europe's population. Cats being released in theaters in 2019. Stanislav Petrov may have at one point been the most powerful person on Earth. He saved us from nuclear war. 2016 election. I'd say when a volcano destroyed Pompeii. I'm definitely not a history nerd, but the worst I can think of off the top of my head is probably the My Lai massacre. A mass extinction where 95% of the marine fauna and 70% of species outside it vanished. It was 250 million years ago.
Meteors are actually terrifying.
There was at least 2 events in recent last 100 years where a chip in a sensor used to detect nuclear launches from enemy territory gave a false positive alarm and we almost went to nuclear war. Can't understate enough how really catastrophic that would be.
Imagine a full-on nuclear war starting, all because of a goddamn malfunctioning sensor. That is indeed scary.
I mean, the whole invention of nuclear weapon could have literally wiped all life off Earth and still can. Our Lady of the Angels school fire in Chicago, 1958. The long string of misfortune that included WWI, the Spanish flu, the Great Depression, and World War II. There's an author I really like who suggests that historians of the future will likely look at all the mass death events of the 20th century as one giant event. Probably the first outbreak of the bubonic plague in Constantinople, the largest city in the world at the time, and the first wave wiped out between a half and a quarter of the population. 300,000 dead in a city of 500,000 to 1 million with a completely new disease. We often look at things through a European lens, but try looking at things from the Native Americans' perspective. Imagine living in a tribe that doesn't immediately have contact with the Spanish, but diseases they brought wipe out, in some estimates, up to 90% of pre-Columbus populations. By the time you come into contact with the first white settlers who want your land, your people have literally been decimated. We often think of Native Americans as primitive, but what would a society look like that was wiped out by disease? These tribes likely lost valuable craftsmen and had a breakdown in society. They also had to deal with a constant flow of foreign invaders who saw them as subhuman and wanted their land. That had to be terrifying. It hasn't happened yet, but it's not far off if we aren't careful. The creation of the universe.
It's how all our problems started.
And one day, everyone's problems will end.
In the beginning, the universe was created. This has made a lot of people very angry and been widely regarded as a bad move.
Not so much the scariest ever as the most annoying ever.